Welcome, everyone. I'm Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium, a Taino Arawak, and today I'm talking about the 4B movement, my first 2 years, and what you can expect. I don't have notes for any of this today. I just wanted to have a frank discussion with you guys. Again, we will be taking your questions and comments throughout, so I do encourage you to please post. This is a community discussion with us girls on what exactly this is about, what I have experienced in my journey, and what I think is important to share with you if you have just started or if you're debating on joining the movement. And I want to break it down not only from a personal perspective, but a spiritual perspective, talking about even the astrology behind what's happening here, why this is happening, why it's taken off so rapidly and with such a sort of ferocious movement and veracity. This is very much like a fire that got ignited a few years back. And while I think many of us are in it and we don't know it, we are at this point starting to recognize that we've already joined. And I want to sort of touch on some of that too. So the 4B movement, if you're not familiar, you can go back and watch. I've been doing videos on it for months before anybody else was even talking about this. Okay, so you can go onto my YouTube at Ask Ivy and watch a bunch of videos on it. But the basic idea behind the 4B movement is that it started in South Korea in 2019, and the 4Bs are I believe they're Japanese words for the 4 no's. So that's no marriage, no dating, no childbearing, and no sex. So this sounds extreme because it is extreme. This is something that started in South Korea because the women there were sick and tired of being treaded on. It's no different than what's going on here in America. I know that a lot of places around the world are shocked by the deterioration of women's rights here in America. Even France was the first country a couple weeks ago to step up and write into their constitution that women's autonomy will be protected, that women are able to legally access abortion by their own choice. And that was revolutionary in itself. So things like the 4B movement are encouraging massive political change like that. And what we need to do is to understand first and foremost that, you know, while this started in Korea, this is a worldwide problem, and that this movement has spread internationally. So when women in Korea started doing this, their goal was to collectively cut men off. And through that revolutionary practice and deprivation that men would experience, they wanted it to force the government to give them rights that they did not have. And it is working. So about 4 years into the movement, what we started to see was, the death rate is increasing of the elderly, and the birth rate has severely declined. Now, America hasn't even claimed the 4B movement as a huge thing yet, and our birth rate is also rapidly declining. And this is how you know it's already here. It's already been here. So, we want rights. We want, whether it be paid maternity leave, or, we want more equality in pay. We want some medical support. We want social services support if we're going to be raising these children and birthing these children. We want our autonomy. We want rights that have been taken away from us by men, by the patriarchy. And we want to see that power system burn down and finally, once and for all, become equal. And if people are not willing to pay up, they no longer get our services. Bye-bye. That's it. It's that simple. And for me, that's what joining the 4B movement was all about from the beginning. Now, I didn't know that there was a name for this when I joined. I knew that Roe v. Wade had been overturned here in the States. And I knew that that was going to be the last straw because I knew that after Roe v. Wade was overturned, I was going to see such a major shift in the men around me that I would likely no longer be able to deal with them at all. And that's exactly what happened. And the way that played out here for me in America was that men quickly, after Roe v. Wade was overturned and we lost our rights to, our autonomy and abortion, men felt justified to become obscene on the streets. They've always been obscene on the streets, but I would say that after the 90s, men started to behave with a greater sense of morality than what they had been because the laws were getting stricter and they were becoming more and more alienated through their inappropriate, mentally ill behavior. Well, that ended when Roe v. Wade was overturned. I noticed it as soon as the weather turned, as soon as it got warm outside. It was exactly like I had suspected. I felt like I was living in the 80s and the 90s again. We would see that out on the streets on a daily basis, harassment was going through the roof. I felt that no matter where I went, even in small communities, not like big city streets, but even in small communities, men were feeling justified to verbally assault or to physically get up in my space more than what I had seen in like 20 years. So, I remember the final straw, I think for me, when I really realized I was done talking to any men and I was seriously thinking about getting off even like the dating apps that I barely used at all. I was thinking about stopping every communication because I'd gone out for my nightly walk and I had noticed such a pattern in the way men were coming up and getting up in my face. And, I've got my headphones on. I'm looking at the beach. I walk a few miles by the beach every day. Or I'm looking at, I don't know, my phone. I'm living my life. And they would be saying inappropriate things to me, or they would be telling me to smile, or they would literally be getting up in my face to cross paths with me and force me to give them attention. And this was during the day. And then at night, I remember this one night, I was trying to get to the bathroom down at the beach on the dock. And it was a weekend. I mean, maybe it was like a Thursday, but I think it was more like a Friday. It had that weekend feel. But when the weather is good, all the bars are kind of open by the dock. So I kind of already had my back up that something crazy might happen. But again, these really aren't problems I've had to deal with, since like the 90s. So I was thinking, okay, just be watchful, be careful, but I didn't think much of it. However, a couple minutes after feeling nervous about something on my walk, I had lost that sense of peace. I had that feeling of like, I have to be ready to fight at any given moment. A truck pulled up in front of me and cut me off from being able to get into the restroom. And a bunch of fat bearded guys got out and started making sexual remarks at me. And me being me, I've never backed down from a dude harassing me on the streets ever, not once in my life. That's just how I handle things. So I told him to F off and I said whatever else I said. And his buddy came and pulled another truck up on the other side of me. And I watched something like, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 grown men decide that they were, instead of protecting me and telling their drunk, moronic friend who was verbally trying to like sexually assault me, instead of telling him to back down, get in the bar, you know, act like a civilized human being so they didn't have to bail him out for the night. Instead of doing that, they supported him and started yelling at me. Now, I had to go in the bathroom, and I'm going to the bathroom. I'm on my walk. This is my space. I'll be damned, okay? I'll be damned if I'm ever going to back down. I have never once backed down from men acting this way. And I understand, yes, we can get unalived and all these horrible things can happen. I know, and I'm not encouraging anyone else to behave like this, okay? But this has kept me always feeling like I am in a position of power in my life, and I will never become subservient to that. And yeah, it's put me in danger at different times, but I would rather go out defending myself than to cave to this. So that's just me. Now, I had to get to this bathroom. So I go in the bathroom, and while I'm in there, I'm starting to seriously think about how I'm about to be physically assaulted when I walk out, because clearly no man in the environment is going to protect me. Okay. Any girls that are in the environment, I hadn't seen any, but I wouldn't expect them to get themselves involved in something like this, being that we're smaller. But it usually is women who step up and protect. I don't think I've ever really had a man defend me in a situation, like this ever. So I'm thinking of weapons, what weapons do I have? Anyways, long story short, I come out and there wasn't much else said. I was able to walk past them. Nobody touched me. I think sometimes, just taking a moment to sort of calm down, but you could still hear that loudmouth one, who's really trying to rev everybody else up. And I realized that was the night I was going to have to be more careful about the types of weapons I carry on me and how times had changed. We have gone back, to a time when there are no consequences for men to come up and verbally, physically assault a woman on the streets in front of everyone. And, again, it didn't shock me. So one of the other things that had happened around that time was that the men who were approaching me. Now, I'm 44. Again, this started when I was 42. I have younger men approaching me more so than ever now, more so than ever. Okay. I have guys in their 20s, in their 30s, and then all the way up. Like, you never hit the wall, ladies. Okay. It's a myth. It's something that I even feel has gotten stronger since I joined 4B. So maybe it's that law of attraction thing, when you say no, it's like they want you even more. So this was a period of time where I was trying to explore other options, because the men raised in heavy patriarchy, who are now like, the men in their 40s, like the men my age, right? Or the men in their 50s, or, they're pretty unrelatable. So I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll try to date younger. It's not really working for me. But I was open to it. So I'm talking to a bunch of different men of different ages on a couple dating apps. So we've got 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Okay. I stayed pretty much within that range. And I started to notice that all of them were trauma dumping. Every conversation I would have with one of them was becoming very peculiar. It was taking on a needy, desperate energy. And I'm looking at some of these guys and I'm thinking, they're really good looking. Like, why are they so like lonely and needy? What are they doing wrong? That they don't even know me, and they're trying to create this intimate exchange of active listening and sensitivity and like friendship bond over a dating app, I was like, what is wrong? So, I realized that at that point, women were cutting them off more and more, and they were starting to show the effects of it. That's what I was looking at. And because these men don't know how to be good friends to other men, they're not supportive of each other. That's the patriarchal system. They're not only abusive to women, they're abusive and neglectful to each other too. Um, Everything within these male relationships is about power and control. So there's no substance there. They don't have one another to go to, whereas women have each other to go to. We share, we support each other. Our relationships are normal and they're healthy. And what they were trying to do was to form a bond with me through dating apps as quickly as they possibly could. And a lot of that was reflective of their desperation and their loneliness. Around that time, we started to hear a lot more about the men's loneliness epidemic. And for the last couple years, researchers made the massive mistake of blaming that on women, saying that if we don't get together with these men, they're going to turn more extremist, that their suicide rates are going to continue to skyrocket, that they're going to turn more toward drugs and alcohol, their depression is out of control, they're going to vote right. They already vote right. That's why we lost things like Roe v. Wade. They're already abusive. They're already abusive to themselves. They're already depressed. They're already alcoholics. They already don't do the work on themselves. They already don't go to therapy, right? There's a reason there's a loneliness epidemic, because they don't deserve anyone else's company. Or you could say they deserve what they get. So I'm watching all of this unfold, and I'm watching in the news and all these researchers and, you know, all these podcast bros trying to say women need to step up and let these men live with them. So men need cohabitation or they need marriage, or else they end up being mentally ill extremist or, causing fatal harm to themselves. And every woman was so disgusted by this 2-year attempt by researchers to push us back into such a place of harm and damage that we had worked so hard generationally to climb out of. Women have been cutting men off for far longer, than the 4B movement. And this started with us being able to get our own bank accounts in the late 1970s. And so I started to connect the dots on these things. And I started to really identify the level of value that I had and how I am not compensated for that as much as I should be. And while I've always made sure that I don't center a man, and I come from 3 generations of single women who always said, if you let a man in, he'll ruin your life. He'll ruin your finances. He'll ruin the kids. He'll ruin everything. I thought maybe my grandmother and my mother, and so I thought maybe they were kind of bitter. They were just being honest about their experiences. So I already had that in my background to understand that I was never to do that. But I did start to realize more and more the different ways that my energy, my attention, my affection, my wisdom, my skill set was being extracted from me without me even noticing it. And that's where I started to identify how much being raised as a woman in a patriarchal system is a cult. And once I realized that I was fully in a cult, I started to compare it to things like being raised in the cult of Catholicism and Christianity that I had broken out from, and how I was raised in the cult of American culture, which is so highly individualistic and capitalistic. So there were different, and like the patriotic um sort of that conditioning that came with, and that goes hand in hand with the religion. Being raised in Catholic school, for example, one of the first times I ever realized I was being indoctrinated into a cult was when I showed up at Catholic school every day and I was expected to stand up while they gave morning announcements and do a pledge of allegiance to a flag. And I was like, I feel like I knew I was like 6, but I knew I was like in a cult, in a cult, in a cult. I knew something was off about this energy. And over the years, being able to identify cults in general helped me to identify how deep seated the conditioning and the programming of patriarchy had gotten into me, that I was involuntarily giving my energy, affection, time, mental, knowledge, whatever, to men on demand and not getting paid. So, this was a moment for me in seeing their desperation, in seeing their neediness, in seeing their verbal assault shamelessly on the streets return, in seeing them grabbing at taking women's rights away through things like Roe v. Wade being overturned. Watching all of that simultaneously helped me to understand that they were like flailing, and these were the final stages of death for the patriarchy. And I felt amazing. And I felt like I wanted to do more to feed that. So I had decided that I was going to see what happened if I cut off men in general. And during that process, I really started to almost backpedal and negate myself. And that's always a sign that I'm letting go of significant indoctrination. When I start doubting myself, when I know I should do something or should stop doing something, it's always a sign that I'm becoming double-minded and like insecure and not trusting myself. So I had to explore a lot more with that. I continue on a daily basis to explore what that is about, because it's like always popping up. It's like crabgrass. There's always more. There are more layers to this onion. I am sure I will be deprogramming from the patriarchy for the rest of my life. And I think that's something everyone should expect to be doing. But I noticed that I was ready to stop intuitively. I was ready to stop once I figured that out. And then part of me said, well, maybe it's just American men. I've also been dating since I was 9 years old. And I had some really great experiences. I know that sounds really young, but I don't know. It was the 80s, it was the 90s, really more around that time. And it was just cutesy stuff, but it was dating nonetheless. And I remember my first little boyfriend that was like a serious, actual committed relationship, Jared. I remember us going on our first date, and we were at like a putt-putt situation. And I remember my cousin was there to sort of chaperone, and he was harassing me. So I went out to the parking lot to get some fresh air and get away from his negativity. And Jared came out and he checked on me. And he just was going to sit there, on this little cement stopper, where people would park in the parking lot. He was just going to sit there with me. And we were talking about things we like. And I said, well, I really like cats. And he said, you do? And he ran off behind this house. I was like, what is this boy doing? And he came back with an armful of kittens. And he dumped them in my lap. And I remember he and I having this moment, this beautiful exchange that was going to be the peak of any dating experience I would have up until 44. Okay. So like, I just remember starting off strong and watching it deteriorate from there. But I think that in my head, again, due to the patriarchy, I created from that moment of purity and that example that I had of what a relationship was really supposed to be, a fantasy world. And I had always just hoped to be able to sort of get back there. And it never happened. And um, I realized that this is a bigger problem in America than a lot of other places. So I had decided to, as the first part of my 4B movement, and again, I didn't know what it was called at that time. I just knew it was time for myself and women to start doing this. I knew it was time. So I had stopped dating American men. Okay. So I was dating like Peruvian, Mexican, Indian, Polish. So I spent the last, like the year after that, just talking to men from other places. And while that was amazing, and I met some really great people, I felt like I was trying to figure out a different variation of the patriarchy with every single one. It was, it was just a constant um, ongoing system of deprogramming and making sure that I was talking to someone who was actively deprogramming from their patriarchal upbringing, or it's not worth, my time and attention and energy. And ultimately, I just realized this is a waste of my time and energy. I don't want to help any of them deprogram. I don't want to babysit any of them through the deprogramming process. I have enough of my own work to do in this process. The last thing I want to do is have to monitor a relationship all the time to make sure that I'm not being victimized. Like it was just such a turnoff. At that point, I was like, okay, I think I'm done. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll just try to date women. Maybe I can just try to be a lesbian. Maybe I can switch teams. And that seemed like a logical next step for me. But ultimately, that's just not working. And I didn't want to waste anyone's time, that I'm probably not going to be able to adapt to that in the ways that I would hope. So what I noticed though through that process was that when I went into my dating apps and I switched from like just dating men to like dating men or women, oh my God, the women that I attracted, we are so beautiful. We are so amazing. We have such incredible hygiene. We take such good care of our hearts and our health, our minds, our bodies, our relationships, our work, our career. I was like, this is what's out there. I'm like, it's like Louis Vuitton versus Walmart. Okay. I felt ripped off. I felt like shocked by what I had been settling for. And it just really encouraged me even more to say, men don't deserve this. Men don't deserve us. They're not earning it. They're not bringing enough back to the table to have this. And it was really then that I knew um it wasn't about finding a replacement, for men or relationships. It was pulling out of it entirely in every way, shape, and form, and spending some time with myself to figure out how I've been negatively impacted all these years by the patriarchy, and what I need to do to heal, and how I can stop the bleeding, how I can stop my energy and attention and, affection and labor from being exploited and siphoned out of me. So in the last weeks of coming off the dating apps, I had developed as a psychic. Some of you may have this. A lot of animals have this. We can smell disease. We can smell illness. We can smell things even through a picture of someone else. I developed this ability that I normally only use when I do medical intuitive work for someone, or there's a paranormal problem and I can smell it and I'm helping someone with a cleansing or an exorcism, or, an attachment issue, a possession. These are things that I've been able to tap into at will. I had never experienced it where I couldn't shut it off. And all of a sudden, if I would go into the dating apps, it wasn't all the men, of course, but there was um a smell that would come off of a great deal of them. And whether that was me smelling literally their poor hygiene, it was like being exposed, or disease that was developing in them, or something they had that they hadn't cleaned up that was already here, or mental health stuff, or paranormal problems. There was just a ton of stench, and I was done. I mean, I was done. I have OCD, and it's already hard enough to deal with. Men struggle to take care of themselves, and so I've had no patience with that in the past. um but this was to a degree that shocked me. And being that a lot of it hadn't happened yet, one of the things that happens with medical intuitive work and psychic ability is that you see things that are going to happen. I found that incredibly disturbing also, because that's what's going to happen for them, right? Or that's what's already started. It's brewing. And that is due to lack of self care. And it isn't just the hygiene stuff, it's mental health, it's emotional well-being, okay? And I was like, "No, this is not okay." And this is what researchers have been warning about. Ladies, get back together with these guys because they're deteriorating, they're gonna die off. Also, I recently found out that some statistics about men being out of relationships with women almost doubled. So this was shocking, because typically if a man is widowed, he dies within 2 years of the woman's death, because he's been siphoning so much of her energy and labor off of her for so long, that he doesn't know how to take care of himself. And I see this as a psychic medium. They immediately go to another relationship. They don't care about you. They don't miss you. Nothing. They just miss the free labor. So men who are widows will typically remarry within 2 years or die. That's the alternative, because they will not step up and actually take care of themselves. Now that's less than a year. And it was something like the study I just saw was pushing 80%. Almost 80% of men will deteriorate, within like a year of a relationship ending. So this is what I was smelling, and that's just me. That's just one of the things that I apparently am blessed with now. So going back would be hard, but I started to cut off like all the apps and things like this. And what happened after that was just very much a a sense of quiet, a sense of calm. This sense of peace came to me that I realize I'm not getting back to, because like I said, I was like 9 years old when I started dating. I'm not getting back to it. I'm having it for the first time ever at 44 years old. This sense of calm and tranquility. My nervous system is not agitated. My body, my mind, my soul feels like my own. Like I claimed something that I didn't even know was there to claim. Now, this made it easy for me to continue and not slide back into old patterns and habits, like reloading the dating app so that I can get like uh, a fix, like an addict, so that I didn't have to get that, what we call it, serotonin and dopamine hits. You know what I mean? Like that had become for me over the years like an addiction. Like I think it is for anybody. I don't think this is a man woman thing. I think it is for everybody. Everybody wants to be validated. Everybody wants to be told they're beautiful. Everyone wants to be told that, somebody wants them, even if it is just sexual. Everybody wants that to a degree. But the inner peace that I had and the feeling of coming into my own for the first time ever in my life was so valuable. I think it kind of squelched that desire for the dopamine hit, and I never uploaded them again. Okay. So still to this day, I don't have any of the dating apps. I felt very confident going forward in saying I'm not dating anymore, which was really weird because since 9 years old, even though I had chunks of time where I didn't deal with anybody or I dated casually, like I did that through my whole 20. I just dated casually a bunch of people and we were all open about it, you know. That's kind of how it was back then anyways. I had never officially said in my mind, I will not date anyone. I had never done that since I was 9. I had never said, I will not. It was always like, even when I was taking a break, it was like, well, if something happens, you know, if someone crosses my path, and I've never been heavy into dating or heavy into looking for it. And I'm a girl. I don't really have to be. It just crosses my path. I could take it if I wanted. I don't have that. I can leave it. It doesn't matter. You know, I've never had to work at it. I don't think most of us do. So, you know, it wasn't something I had invested in heavily, but I felt like because in my mind, I had never entirely eliminated it, there was this whole world of exploration that was opening up to me from that decision. And I felt really good saying out loud, no, thank you. I'm not dating right now. And then I heard about the 4B movement. And I was not shocked to hear that there was a name for this and that it had already grown internationally and that it had started around 2019. I wasn't shocked, but I sort of fell down a rabbit hole of obsession. So I've been putting out videos on this far before anyone was even talking about it here in the States. Again, you guys can go back and check those out. But I knew it was a valuable movement. I knew this was the movement. I knew that this was the revolution because we could see the deterioration with the men there. So they've been clocking it again since 2019. What had happened was that the men deteriorated in the same way they are here in the States. They basically, there's more mental illness, there's an increased suicide rate, you know, they're drinking more, drug abuse, da 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 da. Because why? Because they're not taking care of themselves. So it's not like they don't have access to help. It's not like they didn't create the system themselves and they didn't make their own bed. Now they're lying in it. Okay, get up, help yourself, you know. But they're not. So what they did in Korea was they ran to their moms. So they've spent the last couple years digging and clawing to stay in mom's basement, you know, and sucking the life out of aunties, sisters, friends, mothers, grandmothers. And what happened in the last ballpark year and a half in Korea is that those women also cut them off. They said, get out of here. They kicked them out of the house. They stopped letting them sleep on the couch. They stopped enabling them and caretaking over them because we're all part of the patriarchal system. So if you're a sister, if you're a mother, if you're a friend who's a female, if you're an aunt, if you, these men are taking from you also. The 4B movement, for me, is a political movement. The 4B movement is about all of us joining in together, every age, okay, and deciding that we are not going to feed these toxic men or the patriarchal system anymore. We're going to say, pay up. You want my services, you have to pay for it. And you have to prove that you're an upstanding, civilized human being. Can't do it? Then you get nothing. Okay, so this isn't about childbearing age women deciding not to have kids. This is way bigger than that. This is all of us. And now what we're seeing is an increase in violence from men on the street in New York City punching women in the face every day, all day, to an increased rate in grandmothers and mothers and sisters being killed and assaulted from the men in their homes who are their sons, okay, matricide, the brothers, the nephews, the uncles, all of these toxic men who have now latched on to the women in the family to take care of them because they can't get a girlfriend, they can't get a wife. They are assaulting those women now. Okay, so you can Google it and see the skyrocketing rates of this sort of like family abuse. And this is going to become a new, almost like a little bit of a phenomenon. I'm sure they'll try to make it out to be, but we're going to be hearing more about this in upcoming years because it's skyrocketing here in America as well. And we haven't even fully said that we are in the 4B movement, but it's typical again to see in Korea. That's how it plays out. This is why they need to go. We also, saw that some of them, I guess, in Korea are doing better, but whatever. That needs to not be our concern. I don't care. I don't care how men do. I really don't. They've never cared about how I'm doing under the boot of patriarchy that they created. I've never received back for the amount of effort I've put in. I don't care what happens to them. I really don't. Would I like to see them do well? Sure. But hey, you could lead a horse to water. I have also had it hard. Us girls have had it hard 100 times the amount of them. And we don't use excuses like that. We don't remain weak like that. We tend to pull, together and our resources together and better ourselves in spite of the fact that the medical community does not support us. Our governments do not support us. We don't have mental health research and psychiatry to support us. I mean, we're working with nothing, and we do a million times better than these men who have everything at their fingertips. So there's no excuse, and I don't feel bad about it. Also, on that note, I just want to say that I've been watching everyone as this has unfolded and the 4B movement hit America, meaning like on social media and in the headlines that people are finally talking about it and what it means. And I've been very disappointed to see how many women and girls are spending time reacting to men's reactions. Why do you care about their reactions? They're moochers. Okay. They're siphoning your energy. They're like children. All they want is attention and your energy. And so they're coming up with fake accounts that look like women's accounts, and they're not women's accounts. This is men across the board, 99.9% of the time. Yeah, there are always some women who aren't the brightest bulbs in the box and, will feed the patriarchy. There are always going to be foot soldiers for that. But the majority of nasty women in social media comments, because guys don't have the guts to say any of this to your face. It's all going to happen on social media. And this is what I'm talking about. Those aren't women. Those are men. And it's like, I think a lot of women aren't catching on to this. So there's a lot of arguing happening there. That's another form of men trying to steal your energy. Then you've got men having such a strong reaction to having the pacifier taken away from them, which we're doing deliberately. So when you take candy from a baby, how do you expect the baby to react? Not good. The temper tantrums that you're seeing, the increase in violence, all of this, again, especially on social media platforms of all kinds, is coming from you watching almost like a fish that fell out of the water bowl and is flopping and flailing and dying on the floor. You're watching the last gasping breaths, and what you should be doing instead of engaging in that and actually trying to educate them or fight with them is just smile and enjoy your front row seat to the karma show, ladies. Okay? You are the queen. Do not get down off your throne for anyone. What they want more than anything is to continue to feed off your energy source. That's what we've always been for them. And that's what we're saying we're no longer going to do. And if they, like a child, can only get that energy source from negative attention, they're more than happy to get it from negative attention. Give them nothing. So you guys need to stop. I don't want to see any more videos, okay, on this. Who cares what they think? Aren't we beyond that? Isn't that the point of the movement? So I think some people are missing the point of the movement, okay? Anyways, girls, this is a political movement. They're done. They're over. They had their time. It's good. Bye-bye. You don't like it? Bye-bye. Didn't expect you to. Okay. Also, they have no bargaining chips. They already played their hand fully long ago. They have nothing to work with. You're going to take what away? Okay. I also noticed on that note of what else can they take away? Well, nothing, because they never gave anything. But like, I noticed that with me personally, and this was another moment where I realized how big 4B was going to be. My money skyrocketed. Okay, so I have been annoyed for about a decade in running my psychic mediumship business. I have been annoyed that I have this incessant feeling that there's a block somewhere, and I couldn't pinpoint it. And I had um been able to do really well, whether it's with like my ministry or the church or the business of giving readings or the psychic fair. I've done well. I'm not complaining. I'm blessed. But something was off. And I didn't go to business school. My degree's in journalism. I gave up a lot to start doing this for the public. This was never my plan. It's a calling. Okay. It wasn't my plan. So I want to make sure that I'm maximizing. And I never thought in a million years, again, because I've been dating since I was 9 years old, I never thought in a million years that cutting men off and no longer giving them anything was going to cause for all of those blocks to come tumbling down and for me to be seen and heard in a different way than I had been in all these years of like effort that I've been putting in to show up and do these classes and do these shows. I didn't think that it would lead to networking and people reaching out and wanting to get in contract with me, and this feeling of long-term trajectory and stability that I've never had in my life, because I come from a poor background and I was homeless for 6 years. I talk about that a lot on here. I come from a lot of problems, and so money is my biggest generational curse. It never occurred to me for a moment that by saying no to men, I was going to eliminate those blocks and hit my peak or the beginning of my peak. Who knows how big or how far this will go? The possibilities are endless, and I would never trade that, ever. Now, why did that happen? And why is this happening for you, or why will this be happening for you if you do this right? And by doing it right, I mean, I have mentally shut off from them. I'm not pretending to be part of the 4B movement. Okay. I'm not going to go on and deal with trolls after this. I'm not going to fantasize about wanting a boyfriend after this. I'm done mentally. That's what the universe pays you out on, your thoughts. Okay. High karma, low karma, based on your thoughts. So I know now that because I was feeding through universal law of attraction, negativity, toxicity, it was a disrespect to me. I had blocks that couldn't be removed. Men were a block for me. I hold myself accountable. I take full responsibility for that, because I knew that when I was drinking too much, I had to stop drinking. I knew that when I was smoking my Marlboro Reds, it was bad for me and I was going to have to find a way to quit. I knew that. I know when I go and I buy a whole chocolate cake and I consume the whole thing, and I may. I know I'm going to have to walk an extra 2 or 3 days that week to work it off. I know that there are consequences karmically, energetically, scientifically, mathematically, to everything we do. And it had never occurred to me, because I am so programmed and brainwashed into the cult of patriarchy, that it was even an option to fully mentally cut them off and cut them out of my life and reap amazing rewards. On top of that, my health improved. I had a couple nagging health problems that I thought were maybe just from like some injuries I took when I was like working out. I in general am like very healthy. I don't really have any issues. But they weren't really clearing up, and I was starting to get concerned about maybe them becoming something more, or why are the tricks I'm usually able to use, from Reiki to vitamins to stretching, like whatever, why are these things not working? It was becoming a concern. I will tell you that within 3 months of cutting men off, my body just healed itself. What else happened? I don't know. I'm happier. Also, I started here's some of the negative stuff that I think you should be prepared for. Because I have a bunch of girlfriends who hopefully are not tuning in, but like also I love them. Okay, maybe this is good for them to hear. Because I have a bunch of girlfriends who are not decentering men, I am noticing that they are looking more and more problematic to me. I am realizing that I am outgrowing them rapidly, and that these women who are obsessed with these men, they center these men, or they're obsessed with the next possible date, or they're dealing with even toxic, abusive men, and they're trying to make excuses for them, or they want me to make excuses for them. Things like this are sticking out like a sore thumb. Okay. If maybe I got, stiffed or something like that, and I'm realizing, oh, I kind of got stiffed by one of my girlfriends a little bit, and then she's claiming it's something else. I know it's that toxic, loser she's dealing with. Now she's costing me time. Now she's costing me energy. These are things I may have overlooked in the past, but now I realize that those men, are siphoning my energy through her. It's still going back over to them because they're basically draining her and using her. And now they need more supply. And so it's hitting me. So I've had to cut off those girlfriends. And I've had to say, this is probably something I should have realized years ago. But that's toxic. And I just don't want to be a part of it anymore. So I think you have to be realistic about how your relationships are going to change. Now, I'm always telling my students or my clients, especially the psychic mediumship students, go through a lot of this because it's a long process of training. When you want to spiritually develop, and you're only going to spiritually develop through your everyday activities, the mundane things in life, or seemingly, small things, it's in the everyday. When you decide that you want to develop more spiritually, once you're committed in a genuine way, you will go through a growth process that involves a lot of detoxing. And it can feel very much like new level, new devil. I'm moving up in the world. And at the same time, what are all these demons? What are all these problems? What's all this deterioration? It's a natural part of human development and growth to outgrow and have to leave behind people and situations that you had once invested in and it looked normal to you, and this has been a spiritual journey for me, as well as a physical, mental, self-development and deprogramming journey. And I'm part of something bigger. I'm part of a movement that will once and for all turn the tables on this toxic international patriarchal system and put power in the hands of women. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I don't regret it a day, even with the losses I've had to take, and knowing that I will continue and plan to continue to outgrow a lot of the things in my world. I'm doing that boldly, and I'm trying to just focus on the benefits because they are massive and they just keep flowing and coming. I want to talk a little bit about the astrology, and then I'm going to take questions, comments. So I can't believe, should I even mention it, that TikTok has not shut me down yet. That they may do it any moment. That may be why I'm thinking of it. So be prepared for those of you who have been listening on TikTok. Get over to YouTube at Ask Ivy because they always shut me down. Okay. And then Jill, my beautiful producer, will be popping up your questions and comments. So let's take a look at the astrology real quick. When we look at things like Pluto moving into Aquarius, which was, I think it was January 20th, we see the end of the patriarchy. That's literally what it is. Okay. So the last time we had it, we had like the Civil War, we had the French Revolution. Okay. Which is funny, right? Because France just wrote in abortion rights to their constitution. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So when you look at the astrology, we left behind in Pluto and Capricorn, right? Capricorn is the patriarchy. It's toxic masculinity. It's rigidity. It's the old way. Okay. It's like dusty, crusty dinosaur energy. It's gone. Then we moved into Aquarius, which is the collective. And I've been saying for years that it really started in 2016, but it started peaking around 2019, that the new world, the revolution, is going to be led by LGBTQ, the Black community, women and indigenous. So minorities in general, okay, but especially, and we have now entered into the period of time where it's women and indigenous by TikTok. There you go. It's like I'm psychic or something. So what we see is more of this launch into the new world. A lot of people are calling it. You can call it whatever you want, but right now we're in the revolutionary phase where we're watching the old still die off. I mean, we're talking January 20th. Okay, this is gonna take a few years, and so just be mindful about where it's going. Also, and this is the last thing I'm gonna really mention with the astrology. Women just spent the last couple years dealing with some transits that forced us to heal. Now, we have free will. So when people say that the future is either completely written and we're just following a script, or it's chaos and you could create whatever you want, both of those are true and neither of those are true. Collectively, it's true. You have both. You have destiny charted future and you have free will. So we decide what we're going to do with these opportunities. But what we want to, sorry, I'm distracted with the TikTok situation. Hopefully everybody was able to get over here. But anyways, what happened is that the last few years, women went through the ringer. Women had to deal with the wounded healer syndrome. Women were forced planetarily to deal with their own healing, shadow work, purging. And we've seen it, and we did amazing, sisters. I mean, we did the work. It was hard to watch at times, but it was so inspiring. And we laid such a great foundation for men to come along who are now entering into that journey, and they're going through the same transits essentially for the next 2 years, 2025, 2026. We're going to see them go through the same transits, and they're failing miserably. This is what men do. They don't want to learn. They don't want to learn. You could put it right in front of them and they don't want to learn. They don't want to pick it up. Okay. So I understand that a big part of that is that the way women healed a huge majority of what we had to break free from was the patriarchy. And men benefit from the patriarchy, so they don't want to let it go. But again, we need to not care. Don't expect them to win. Have they ever? Have they proven that they don't want the power, that they won't oppress others? Have they ever shown proof of that? Of course not. So we need to make peace with that. We went through our couple year cycle and we have done amazingly well, and we're ready to take over and lead. They are starting theirs and they're failing miserably. Some of them will do well. Hopefully some of them lead one another, but it is not up to us to touch it. We do not lead. Okay. We do not help. We do not enable. We don't let them sleep on the couch. That includes your friends. That includes your male friends that are takers. You need to pull away entirely. And again, this includes the aunties, the sisters, the friends, the grandmas, the moms. Do not allow this toxicity in your life, in your home. Cut them off. What ultimately I think, we're gonna see is that women's rights and the financial support by the government, these things are going to have to, again, this is, the majority of why I joined was because of Roe v. Wade, but all across the board, all the different ways that women deserve and desperately need more support. We know that women become poor when they have a child. That's just a fact. Okay. So the more kids you have, the more broke you're going to be. If the government wants us to have children, they're going to have to pay up. And without our rights, we're not willing to engage at all. Okay, with these men, and we need to hold steady. So I think we are going to see major changes in it, because we already see, the human population plummeting, and we don't care. We're having the time of our lives. Okay, so you got to make us care, because we just seriously do not. So that's the point. Okay, stay steady. Celebrate all the wins. Wait till that money starts coming to you, people. Okay. Wait until you start to benefit from those health effects and the clarity of mind and the spiritual development and the general state of like happiness and this almost childlike energy that comes up in you. Like you are yourself for the first time in your life because you're not engaging in that toxic energy at all. I mean, the vibration is so high, it really is quite addictive. And when women have said over the years, I love my space, I am addicted to my alone time. I will not have a man like in a significant position in my life and certainly not my space ever on a regular basis, like ever. I so understand that now. But it's going to hit you in ways you never even thought it could. So it's absolutely incredible. And we have a lot to celebrate. So don't focus on the negativity or feed the problems. All right, moving on. We're going to take some questions and comments. So we have Kara Donovan says, you're amazing. And my daughters are strong and fully on your movement. They don't put up with that BS. Their father always gives the best support. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Kara. So are you. Kudos to your daughters. Yeah, on that note, I do think it's important to also take a look at what we came from. So I'm 44. My grandmothers were both 15 to 16 years younger than my grandfathers. That's rape. That's rape. Also, because they were like 15. Okay. Now the same thing happened to me. I was literally 15 when I ended up with the, just disgusting. I mean, men are just, look, it's criminal. Okay. It is criminal. Now, these were your grandmothers. These were your grandfathers. So you can sugarcoat it however you want, but had these women been able to have their own bank accounts, jobs, houses, investments, right? This would not have happened, but it did. And so the examples that we have in our family, like I said, my grandmothers and my mother, I thought they were bitter. I thought maybe there was like a man-hating situation going on there. I realize now that they were just being honest, that men would come in and destroy everything, but they were also so irritable and so angry and like didn't want any of these kids. They didn't want me. Okay. I don't really think they wanted any of us, honestly. But that's what we're coming out of, is a slavery system of entrapment that even our grandmothers, okay, were involved in, because again, they couldn't have bank accounts until what, 1976, 74. Think about that. Okay. So this is a sick, twisted, generational curse type of environment we are also breaking out of as we do the deprogramming from the patriarchal system. Let's go on to another one. Okay, Charlie says, I hear you on that. I've been feeling like there is a block too. The block was probably the most that and the weird smells that come off the photograph, or like I'm just even near. No, I can't do it anymore. That was also interesting, but I would say that the block removals were so fascinating and synchronistic with the thoughts that I was having. So like literally I would have the thought, I would have the breakthrough. Okay. Because deprogramming from a cult it's a lot of work. You're getting closer, you're getting warmer, you're getting warmer, you're getting warmer. And then you have the breakthrough thought and this epiphany moment. And then the money would come, the phone calls would come, the emails would come, the networking would come. I was like, there's no way this is happening. And I'm talking some of these problems were so random, and I would come at them from different angles for years trying to fix them, and literally nothing worked. And then like a light switch on, no more obstacles. It was amazing. It's amazing. We're going to move on to another one. Okay, we are at time. All right, good. Well, you guys, I hope this was helpful. On a closing note, for those of you that are thinking of joining, I would highly recommend it. We need you. It's important. It's such a significant opportunity. You may never for the rest of your lives have an opportunity like this. This has been so long coming. And what we're doing in this, in forcing the governments internationally to finally recognize, you know, our worth, is something that isn't just going to benefit us, it's going to benefit all the future girls and women. And we have a responsibility to do so. That's the way I see it. Okay. I'm looking forward to any comments on this video once it's published. If you want to go back and watch it, it'll be here on my YouTube channel at Ask Ivy. And I will see you guys next time for church, which is, I believe, this Sunday. I'm talking about the hauntings from trauma and abuse, how to exorcise those. So I hope to see you guys for that. That'll be at 8:30 p.m. Eastern here on all platforms. Thank you so much, Jill. Thanks, everyone.